And then when you look at 2016 and Trump, who I endorsed on day one for a broad range of reasons, um, I don't think it would be fair for the Tea Party movement to take credit for his victory, because among our founders and leaders, I was one of the few actually who supported Trump. Many were closer to Ted Cruz or to Rubio and others who we had helped get elected, and Rand Paul. But the populist nature of that candidacy built on a foundation that already we had established, right? Because before 2010, you didn't have this avenue of opportunity for engagement of those who subscribe to our ideals, and not known to many Americans, not broadly reported in media. Former President Trump actually spoke at a Tea Party rally in Boca Raton, Florida in 2011. And there's an article, I think, in the Tampa Tribune that I wrote. It's gone on to the Wall Street Journal now, but it's a great article because it talks about how influenced he was by this experience, how amazed he was at the magnitude of passion and engagement that Tea Party activists had. And I think he used a quote of saying, there's really something here. And of course, he was right about that. And the tactics that he used, really running against the party in 16.
Right. So the populist movement of the Tea Party movement, in a way, Trump was able to build on that and bring that populism forward. Some people even say that Sarah Palin might have been a little bit of a forerunner for Trump, I suppose, in sort of bringing in a lot more people into the conservative movement. But since you've been in politics for so long and have a broader perspective, I want to ask you, where do you see our political climate now in this larger context, focusing on Republican presidents? How do you compare the years of Ronald Reagan to now with Trump, and even with the Bushes in between? How do you see the conservative movement having changed over time?
Well, Reagan was a great inspiration to me. One of the reasons I got involved in this whole line. But when we describe Reagan, we have to look at it in the context of an era that was completely different than what it is today. The challenge, Reagan was the right candidate in 1980 for the challenges the country confronted, which were the Soviet Union on the advance in the Cold War, us beginning to fall back a bit in that, the stagflation that had emerged under Carter through economic overregulation, high taxes, and the associated inflation associated with predominantly his petroleum reluctance and also his excessive spending. Reagan was the right candidate because he was a bold candidate in the sense that he came in with this new idea, which emerged ultimately through the Reagan doctrine and through this concept of very simply that we would win the Cold War, not simply coexist in perpetuity with this hostile foreign power. But now when you look at 2016 and say, well, what were the challenges then? And this is really one of the predominant reasons I endorsed and remain enthusiastic both about Trump as a political figure and about the Make America Great Again agenda, is that we as a country are not going to succeed or survive if we don't address what I see as three core challenges. One is China's Communist Party, which is governing the largest country in the world and is essentially emerging as both an aggressive, now officially genocidal criminal enterprise that has just as grand ambitions of taking down the United States as the former Soviet Union did, but has done it in a much more is doing it in a much more covert way and with the kind of diplomatic niceties that many Americans, if they're not looking at it in depth or are only looking at it through the prism of mainstream media coverage, don't understand the magnitude of what we confront. That's one. Two is the immigration issue. And I don't just mean illegal immigration, which is an obvious and has been an obvious crisis for 40 some years, and one that Reagan frankly didn't address, could have addressed, Bush's didn't address, Obama clearly didn't address. But we need to be focusing on American workers, and particularly wages and job creation. On the wage front, we've really not had in this century any measurable improvement in wages for working Americans.